All right. Welcome back to another great episode. Today I am with Pejman Ghadimi, who is the founder of the Secret Entourage. Pejman has a really cool story, and you guys are, it's probably from a baller standpoint, one of the biggest ballers that we've had on the show. Just has a pretty awesome life, drives nice cars, lives down in Miami, and has a really, really cool story. Pejman founded the Secret Entourage, which if you haven't seen that site or that, I don't know if you call it it's not really a blog, but they have a lot of great blog posts on there, but if you haven't seen that site, you should go check it out. He also has secretconsulting.com, vipmotoring.net, which we'll talk about. It's a, I don't know if you want to call it a continuity program, but it's a membership, I don't know what you call it, Pejman, a membership...
Concierge service.
A concierge service that people pay a monthly fee to get access to the best things in the world. And he does really well with that. He's also the author of The Third Circle Theory, which I have not read yet, but I will be reading here soon. And if you go and look at, go on Amazon, it just has tons of great reviews, and I've heard nothing but good things about it. So anyway, Pejman reached out a few weeks ago. We started talking, and I just thought this would be a really, really great fit for the Money Pillows. So I'm super excited to have you on today, Pejman. Are you... that intro probably didn't do you justice, but was it at least accurate?
It was absolutely accurate, and I appreciate you having me on, Sean.
Oh, for sure. Thank you for coming on. So where do we even begin, man? You currently, did I get all those right as far as the businesses that you run and what you have now?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's correct. I primarily run VIP Motoring, which is a luxury concierge service, and it is membership-based, but most of my day-to-day activities, because VIP runs itself, is focused on Secret Consulting and Secret Entourage.
Now, you just said something really cool. VIP runs itself. So that business brings in, if you can give me an idea, what kind of revenue that company brings in?
Like roughly anywhere from, on our peak, we did about 3.7 million for the year. But like now we're kind of stable at about, I'd say 1.6, 1.8 each year.
And it runs itself. So when you say
that, I don't actually work there anymore. I handle like maybe 2 to 3 emails a day as it, pertains to it. But for the most part, it is managed through my staff and no longer needs my day-to-day interaction with the business.
That's awesome. So so it does 1.6 roughly now, 2 to 3 emails per day. What do you think you put into it on a monthly basis from a work standpoint?
I would say trying to grow it and finding new clients, maybe no more than, I'd say, 10 hours a month. And as far as like support or things that can't be handled by the staff, maybe like 2-3 hours.
2-3 hours. So total of like 12 to 13 hours and
a month. Yeah. And
dude, I'm envious.
Right, but that's pushing because I'm not always looking for clients because we're very selective on how many clients we take on, and we don't really take on more than 15.
Right.
So as a result of that, it ends up that I don't actually have to see clients because we have a lot of repeat business that keeps renewing year after year. And so if I do need new clients, that's when that 10 hours really kicks in.
Okay, cool. And so just to rewind a little bit with that particular business, and then I kind of want to get into your whole story a little bit more, but while we're on the topic of VIP motoring, when did you start that company?
Oh, I started it technically when I was like 14 years old, but it really became what it's known to be today, roughly when I was about, I want to say it was 2005, 2006, when it made the switch over to becoming like a real concierge business rather than a car tuning kind of organization.
Right.
And include other things like, yachts, planes, and just about, more of a concierge style.
And so when you say like concierge service, you just brought up yachts, planes, and cars, you basically get these high-end clients whatever the hell they want. Is that right?
Yes and no. So
okay.
The real difference between a concierge service, like you could call your like Amex Black concierge, and they could get you anything you want at a price. The thing that differentiates us is people pay like a membership fee monthly, and then as a result, then they pay very little for each thing that they get from us. So for example, like let's say someone paid us our monthly $5,000 per client, right? And then on top of that, let's say they wanted a Lamborghini, and so we would help them acquire that Lamborghini without paying all of the crap that other concierge service would charge them on top of at a premium to get that car.
Got it.
So plus then we would educate them on how that system worked. So after the first year they're with us, they would have like the ability to continue this on their own. And if they had no time, they could then continue to pay us to continue staying with us.
Do you find that happens a lot?
Yes, because usually, even though they know and they're well aware, people don't have the time and energy to go seek it. So they trust our team to just deliver for them.
Yeah, it's probably, I mean, I would think for a lot of your clients, it's just a drop in the bucket, that monthly fee and the $5,000. And, if somebody wants a yacht or a plane, just to be able to pick up the phone or shoot an email or send a text and have it done and know that it's going to get done and be able to count on you, I would think that that's worth every penny to them.
Yeah, and know that I think the main thing is know that they're not going to overpay for something, and be able to get out of it at some point is the key part where our service really differentiates itself from the competitors. There's a lot of concierge service, but often concierge service cater to people with unlimited money who just want things and don't care. We cater to people who want to be educated on the matter, just don't know better, and want someone they can trust in acquiring their things.
Awesome. Well, dude, I just got to say, I look forward to the day that I can become a member and call you and request a plane for a next day trip to somewhere great. So, all right, so let's rewind a little bit. That's pretty fascinating, man. And you've got it all set up, so it's pretty much running on autopilot. And I think most of your focus now is on Secret Entourage and Secret Consulting. Is that right?
Well, most of my focus is on Secret Entourage. Secret Consulting is a consulting firm I've had for a while where I'm involved, again, a very, very limited basis when really needed. Secret Consulting builds brands from scratch. So let's say a business wants to launch a new burger franchise, or someone is like coming to me with a new startup idea. We help them build that foundation and kind of bring our team together to help them build the brand around it. And so that, again, I'm very limited basis with, where I only engage in the sense that I review the proposals and I make sure nobody missed anything. But I'm not, again, involved in the day-to-day operations of that either. And Secret Entourage, though, I do spend a lot of my time because that is something very dear to my heart. Not a business, really, even though it is revenue generating. It's not a business that I get paid on, but it's something that's much more important to me in the long run. And so that's where I spend most of my time today.
And can you talk about Secret Entourage for a minute? I mean, I know what it is, but can you just explain to anybody listening or watching?
Sure. So early on, like I've always loved motivating people, and I've always felt that I was naturally a motivation to people because of the cars and the lifestyle I lived. I was very young. When I got my first Lambo, I was like 23, if I remember correctly. And then I had my first 911 Turbo when I was much younger than that. And so a lot of kids used to come to me and be like, "Sir, what do you do? Like, how is it that you drive these cars and you're so young?" And I didn't always live in Miami, so it wasn't like everybody had one, So
where was this when?
I was in DC, in Washington DC, Northern Virginia, and so I always thought that my greatest assets were my leadership skills and my motivational skills, and so I thought, how do we motivate these younger people? Since they're not motivated by these old conventional motivational speakers and everything, and I felt that lifestyle was that motivational twist that was never used the right way. And what I mean by that is we've always seen like bad affiliate marketers leverage lifestyle, or MLM companies leverage lifestyle to try to lure people in. And I felt that we needed an organization that would help really motivate people without having them pay money for useless things and kind of join organizations that they're going to work at forever and never get paid a dime for. So I felt like this was really something missing. And so I had a lot of friends with Lamborghinis and Ferraris and everything else. And I said, why don't we just share our stories and talk to people and try to motivate people? And ultimately, the brand evolved over the years. And then I thought of our brand as the ultimate motivational tool for entrepreneurs and business owners out there. Everybody needs that ticker or something to keep them going through their journey. And I felt that that's what our side and our movement really was. It was people who had made it, who were going to give free advice and help others who are in the making make it as well. So that kind of like pass it forward leadership movement would kind of evolve over time to being like not a nonprofit, but rather great people doing great things rather than just donating money to kind of get away with not doing anything.
Got it. That's awesome. And how long have you had that? Because
it's been about 4 years since we launched Secret. It's been about 2.5 since we've really established its true brand identity. So I would say 2.5 since we've known the direction we were really taking correctly. But 4 years since its first launch.
Yeah, and it's killing it. You're getting how many? You get a ton of unique page views a month, right? Or unique hits
roughly. roughly like anywhere from 80 to 100,000 uniques a month, which is pretty decent because we're very niche. You know, it's not so much like a site that caters to everybody, like a larger entrepreneur-based site. And we have a very good social following. So we're currently almost at 200,000 social followers between our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts, and a very high engagement rate, which works really well for us, you know, where our users are actually people who are very engaged with our brand and keep sharing it, and our community is growing as well. So in all aspects, I think we've done a good job from the beginning bringing this brand to life, even though it was hard because there was no one else that was doing anything like it when we started. So.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. And I've been a fan of your site for a long time. I forget the article I saw. There was the original, and actually this is bringing me full circle to my intro to your site. There was a kid in, I want to say Pennsylvania or New York driving a Lambo.
Yeah, that's Alan Wong, the app developer. Yeah,
he's an app guy, right?
Yeah, he's the youngest. He was the youngest Aventador owner at the time that we did the interview. And so there was no one else with an Aventador that was his age at the time. And if I remember correctly, he was like 20 years old when he got it. So
yeah, I was reaching out to him, or trying to reach out to him, to do an interview for the podcast. And I came across your site doing some research on him. So that's when I first discovered it. And I think it was probably about 6 months to a year ago. And I've been a fan ever since. So
very cool kid.
Yeah, it's crazy. What was his app again? I forget.
It's the police scanner, the 500 scanner.
That's right, yeah. Is he still killing it?
Oh, he's still killing it. I mean, I think he's the only one with the rights to that data from the police station, so I don't think there's no competition. So it's like one of the most downloaded apps in the country, and it stays on top because of that. So.
He's protected, yeah.
Yeah, wow. Exactly. It's a smart business model. I wish we all were, right?
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, he's doing really well. So, all right, well, awesome. So let's rewind, man. You don't have a master's degree, is that correct?
Well, I don't have a degree. I don't even have a bachelor's degree, let alone a master's.
We were joking. We were joking before we got started how we both attempted to try college, and I made it 6 weeks. How long did you make it?
I made it one. I'd say I made it one full semester before I realized that I wasn't going to learn from people who aspired for a mediocre lifestyle. So.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. For me, the snow started falling, and I was more focused on snowboarding. But you kind of took a look around, surveyed it, and I know we talk a lot about mentors and whatnot. And I think you start to look at the people that are educating you, and then actually what you're learning, and how much value is that going to be. And to be honest, I always viewed college as a way to get like a $40,000 a year job with $100,000 in debt, unless you were going to spend 10 years in school, and then you might be able to make $100,000 to $200,000. And you'd leave with equal amount of debt. So I just never was motivated.
Well, I mean, there's also more for me because I was already making literally $80K a year by the time I was starting college.
What?
Yeah, so I was already in corporate America, and I was working since I was 14 to 18.
Oh, wait, okay. Well, hold on. Let's rewind. Okay. $80K when you're going into school. Why even go to school?
Well, because it was kind of a family thing. I had my mom, and she always wanted me to have a degree. And so, it was the natural progression of society, right? Like, that's what we're told we have to do. We go to high school, we graduate, we go to college. And I thought, with a degree, I would get even more money. But then I quickly started realizing I wasn't an entrepreneur at all at that time. So it was just like a corporate mule, ultimately.
At 18, you were a corporate mule already. So wait, hold on. Let's rewind.
Sure.
You started working at 14, is that what you said?
Yeah.
And what were you doing then?
I had a work permit, and I was being a telemarketer.
Okay.
So I was telemarketing for this company, selling windows, siding, and roofing.
At 14?
At 14. And I didn't even have a green card, so technically, I mean,
Where are you from originally?
Originally, I was from Iran, but I lived most of my life in France, in Paris. So I ended up moving over to the States, and I was still struggling to get, an actual real social that was valid for work and a green card. And at that time, I found a way to work at this little place as a telemarketer, which sucked. But you know what? It was the best job I ever had because it taught me fear of rejection really early on in my life, where I wasn't afraid to get hanged up on or told no, because no was a yes to me at that point.
Right.
And so I did that from 14 to 16 about. Then I became the office manager because I really killed it with commissions and everything. And
so
I was
were you going to school at this time? This was an evening gig? Yeah, because most of the telemarketing takes place in the evening, right?
Yep, 2 p.m. I would leave class. I would go home. I would get a ride there. By 4-ish, I was there till 9:30 p.m. And this was every day, and I worked every weekend. And so I would do that. And then I was making like 2 grand a week selling like roofs and siding, which was decent for a 14, 15-year-old, you know?
Were you getting commissions on all the leads you generated or something?
Well, only on the sales. So I was like calling people and I was putting actual appointments on the books and they were selling. And the tickets were like 20, 30, 40K, you know? And so I was selling and I was doing well. And I was 14, but I had a really good strategy on that. We had a recent hailstorm in the area, and they would give me these leads to call, and the leads were shit, so they weren't working, and I wasn't really making any money or anything calling their leads. So I just grabbed the regular white pages, you know, and I looked up where the storm had hit, and I called people before their insurance agents called them, and I told them like to get an estimate on like all the hail damage repair and everything. And so I would like my actual appointments were like turning into sales quickly because people didn't even have to pay for them. They just have to get their insurances to pay for them. And
so wait, hold on, because this is kind of brilliant. I know most people probably don't care, but I care because this is interesting to me. So instead of using leads that you had, you grabbed the white pages. How did you determine from the white pages where people lived and that those would be in the areas that were damaged by the hailstorms?
So what I did is I specifically, because again, at the time the internet wasn't like as commonly used, you know, we didn't even have computers. All we had were these like BS leads that they gave us in a box.
Yeah.
So, and they were randomly,
on
you know,
paper, probably like printed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they're set up all over the place. So it wasn't really white pages. It was this business directory, you know, that it was like a business directory, but for residential. So it would tell you where it is and then all the numbers listed to those areas. The only thing I had to do was just find out where the hailstorm had hit the worst. And so then what I would do is I would just randomly call every house within like a 5-mile radius and ask them, instead of asking them if they're interested in a code, I would ask them if they had hail damage. And when they said yes, then I would find out how far into the insurance process they are. And I would just let them know that we're there to help them so they get the most out of their insurance by knowing what they're faced with before the insurance agent even shows up. And people would buy into it, and they were like, okay, that's great, you can come out. And I was like, it's free, there's no obligation. People would go out there, they would give estimates, and we were the first. So before the insurance company even showed up to tell them they were going to pay for them, they already had something that was probably more than what the insurance was going to present them with. So they liked the idea that they were going to get it done right and get it done for more rather than less. And so people would call us back.
Go ahead.
No, so people would just call us back and be like, yeah, we're ready, and the insurance said we can work with you guys. And then, you know, I was getting commissions of these like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 roof and siding jobs instead of just getting like BS window jobs that were like 5, 10 grand. So I kind of went my own route, but it worked. And eventually the office manager noticed, and he was like, you're leading this office in sales. Even though I was 16, and by that time still nobody was checking my green card status or anything. And as I worked through that company, I eventually got my green card. And by the age of 18, I was the director of that company directly under the owner. So,
oh, dude, that's so awesome. What's funny is, I don't know if you know, there's so many parallels in our story. I telemarketed too. Like that was kind of my first foray into making real money that led to what did that, which we don't have to talk about now, but I just think it's crazy. And I was the same way, man. It was just like my whole goal was, okay, what's the top guy do in here? And his was 10 leads a day. So I was like, I'm going to do 20. And I'm going to push myself until I get to that level. And I did. And when they noticed, like, hey, we're going to promote you. And it's just,
you know, I always say this, but for any parents listening or anybody that's I'd say younger listening, telemarketing is probably one of the best jobs I've ever held when I was young, simply because you get so accustomed to getting used to the fear of rejection and the fear of failure, like very early on in your life. And it's such a great way to start your life not being afraid of failing, like such a strong start point, you know, to anybody's life, I think. So,
for sure,
you know, definitely encourage people who don't like that job to at least go try it so they know what it's like.
Did you ever switch over to the sales side?
I did for a little bit. I didn't really like it. So that's why I felt I was a better trainer, even though I was very young. I felt I was still a better trainer than I was a salesman. And so I kind of went more in the management side rather than anything else.
Got it. Okay. All right. So you did this from 14 to 18, roughly. Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
And at 18, this is when you were making 80K a year.
Yeah.
Were you managing at that point?
Yeah, I was already managing. I was managing 3 offices at that point.
Getting an override over everybody that you're managing,
yep.
I would assume. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Very cool. So you decide to enroll in college. You make it through a semester. You decided to drop out. Did you go back? Were you still working at that point?
No, so I decided to do something a little different because I was working so many hours at that point. I had just graduated high school, you know, through the summer I was working a lot of hours. And then I said, well, how can I keep doing this while going to college? And I couldn't. So I went and looked for another job, and I became a bank manager very early on. I was a director of this company. It was almost like it had a little bit of a pay cut, but I became a bank manager inside a supermarket bank.
Okay.
And so, that was a very sales-driven job and kind of management-driven job. And I did that very young. I succeeded very well at it, and then decided to go to school kind of part-time, while I did that.
Right.
I made it through a semester before I realized that it really wasn't going to take me anywhere, and rather my experience was what's going to take me, where I need to go, rather than this kind of educational background that had no relevance to what I was doing. So I decided to invest all my time in my career in banking, and from there went really far up, became like the love child of everybody, because I was like nailing it with numbers and killing it with management.
Were you just standing there snagging people as they were walking by with their groceries? Hey, open an account.
No, I was. Yeah, exactly. Like I was actually, you know what it was? It was really funny, because I'll tell you a story about my first day there. Like they put me in this bank without any training or anything, and they tell me like, you have these staff and there's all these like people to manage, and they're like 3 times my age, right? And they all look at me like, who's this like 18-year-old retard like sitting there like trying to tell us what to do, And I'm like, okay, so I just walk up to them and I'm like, what are you doing? So they're showing me their computers and stuff, and I haven't gone to training or anything yet. So I have no idea what this is. I had like even overdrafts before that. I didn't know how to manage an account worth anything. And then I'm like, so what do you guys do all day? And they're like, we're supposed to get accounts, this and that. And I'm like, are you supposed to go in the aisles and get accounts? They're like, yeah, but it's impossible, so we don't do it. And so I was like, okay, so you guys
wait, hold on. Did you say, are you supposed to go in the aisles?
Yeah, exactly.
So the grocery stores were cool with you walking around and soliciting their customers? Yeah, that was the deal.
That was the agreement. We had the right to like help their shoppers and talk to them while they shop. That was like the deal that the bank had with the, with the grocery stores when we built the side of it.
Because I've been in a million grocery stores with those, and I've never had one person approach me.
Yeah, that's because it tended not to work, and these guys were scared. They were like, it's a waste of time. But on that first day, I walked in the aisles and got 2 people to sign up accounts. And like literally right there, knowing nothing about the bank, the products, or anything else, I just got them to like me, and I was like, I'll be your banker. And I told them I was brand new. And I was like, you should just come and join us. And when I brought people back, the whole staff just immediately gave me that like respect. I was like, we can't do what you can do, so teach us. What is it that you just did that just helped us, kind of move forward on day one. And so that's how I kind of quickly set up myself as like the go-to guy for all sales and everything in the in-store kind of environment. Then I became a trainer for that same bank. I became a senior VP for the same bank, and just kind of like moved up through the ranks. And eventually, throughout all that time, I had already started VIP Motoring as a car wash company, and I was detailing cars on the side, and I had little Mexicans running around like detailing the cars while I was at work. It was like all of this crazy nonsense, like trying to make bucks. And I was heavily invested in real estate because I was making all this money and I had nothing to do with it. Like I had I had no expenses. I had just my house. So I started buying lots and everything for future, real estate.
Right.
And I started buying these lots and just holding them until they were ready to build. And so I was trying to make money, in doses much more than what I was making to compensate for the little bit of a pay cut I had. And in exchange, what I was really doing, not knowing it, was building an empire. Not even knowing it. Like I was just putting money aside, buying stuff and trying to leverage stuff, not understanding where it was heading, but just doing it because I knew that not doing anything wasn't going to get me anywhere, so I had to do something. So I was trying to make a few bucks there and there, and it eventually kind of worked out.
So how old were you at this point when, let me just, hold on, just to rewind, you're 18, you get the job at the bank, you move all the way up to, did you say senior VP?
Yeah, and I was 22 years old, I think, when that happened.
22 years old.
Yeah, I was 21, about to turn 22, because I remember my goal was to be that before I was 22, because I was still 21, and it was like the week before where I got promoted to senior VP.
Oh, it's so awesome. It's funny how you set goals and how they can just come to fruition. And you started a car wash business. This is high-end detailing, I would assume?
No, actually, you'd be surprised. It was during my telemarketing time, when I was doing that in the office, I would put, because it was a big office building and there was so many other offices, I had my friend wasn't doing anything and he didn't have a green card either. He couldn't work. So I was like, what I'll do is we created flyers and we put them on all the cars in the parking lot. And he would come throughout that time when I was at work, and I would tell him which cars to wash, and we would make like $20 a car. And that's all it was. It was just like a quick detail, any car. It didn't matter what it was. And then people would come to us and be like, can you fix my taillight? Can you fix this? And we slowly became this like on-the-go mobile like car detailing, car repair kind of thing. And
Funny.
he ran that, while I was inside, kind of like calling the shots and running, because people didn't know what I was doing on the phones anyways, right? They didn't know who I was calling. It wasn't automated. So I would just pick up the phone and call those guys, set up the appointments. He would come and run on. And then I would call my leads too,
So you started that doing the thing, and did it continue to grow or take off, or just kind of like?
It was making a few bucks there and there, and it didn't really take off until I got my first Lambo. So it was about like when I was like 22, like I was about 23, and I had my 911 Turbo, which was a big deal because it was like all customized. And people used to ask me, they're like, where do you do this to your car? Where do you do that? I started kind of doing stuff on my friends' cars, like customizing them for free, just throwing stuff out. And then I realized there was a market for it. So I started capitalizing a little bit, a few bucks there and there. And my car wash kind of business evolved into more of a car tuning. And I started focusing on higher end cars because I had one. So now I was in circles of people who had these cars, and it made sense for me to approach them and say, I can get you wheels, I can get you this. And so I became kind of the go-to guy known in my local car clubs and stuff as the customization guy. I was the youngest guy in the group. Everybody was like 50, with these cars, and I was like in my 20s. So it made sense that they would approach me and be like, you did it well, where'd you get this, where'd you get that? And so at that point, this business, VIP at the time, was just nothing more than a car customization shop. And it evolved. I think it really took a turn where you're saying, how did it evolve and make money, like to that point, was when I realized that the real money wasn't in tuning my friends' cars, but it was partnering with dealerships. And so I had this crazy thing I did that just changed like this whole business model from a side business to a full like ongoing business. Was I took these wheels I would put on people's cars, and at that time I had a Lambo, so I would drive to dealerships, to local dealerships, and customization was like hot, but dealers weren't doing it because people were afraid they void warranties, they do this, they do that. And so what I did is I told dealers, I was like, I know you don't want to invest money into this, putting wheels on cars and everything in your lots, but I'll do something really cool for you. I was like, I'll put wheels on all the used cars you have here, and you don't have to pay me for them. But all you have to do is just put like that. If someone wants to buy the car with the wheels, they'll buy it at a premium. So instead of selling wheels to people at like $4,000 a pop, I would get dealerships to sell them at $8,000 a pop, but people would see them on these cars, And so the visual appeal was what I was going on. I was like, if someone wants to buy a Ferrari, they won't give a crap to spend an extra $8,000, even though the wheels only cost $4,000 because they don't know better. And they can all buy it together, and then they feel more comfortable because it's at the dealer and it's done well and the thing is done right. And it was a good time because the economy was doing well and nobody cared. And these cars were flying off the shelves. People were using home equities and all kinds of crap to buy these cars. And so I teamed up with this local major, dealership. And what I did is I put these wheels on these cars. And all I would do is I would tell them I would come in, pick the more popular cars. So if the buyers didn't want to buy the cars, then they would just give me the wheels back or move them to another car. And I would pick neutral colors, so I wouldn't do like a yellow wheel in a yellow car. I would do something like more like silver, so it could be universally used. And then, but people were buying these wheels. And so the dealer was then cutting me these checks because they were selling cars faster.
Why? And because the wheels made the cars look that much better.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And because the cars were all used anyways, people were already saving over the new price tags. And now they had a one-of-a-kind car. The dealer quickly caught on that this was working, and they started like telling me to do more of their cars. And then they started catching on that I was making too much money. So they were like, I want a cut of the wheels you're selling and everything. We worked something out where we put money in the salesman's pocket, we put money in my pocket, we put money in their pocket, and then more dealerships got involved because they were like, we see what's happening there, we want in. So I made sure.
My question to you at this point, why wouldn't, if they see it's working and it's working really well, why wouldn't they then just purchase the wheels and be done with it?
Because you have to have dealer contracts, and I had a lot of loyalty from these wheel companies that knew me very well, and so I would get better deals on the wheels, so the profit margins were much bigger. And the other best part for them, they didn't have to deal with the liability, which was kind of a really cool thing. So for me, that was where the point where my business took a differentiated kind of approach. I would tell them to give the person, like my contact, and then as a result, it give me their information at the point of sale, so I could warranty all the wheels and everything on my own. The reason that
so the dealer, when the dealer sold the car to John Doe, they would say, "Here's PJ's information. If you ever have any issues with your wheels, he's your guy." Got it. Okay.
And then they would also get an authorization form to give his information to me. So there were two things that happened. First, I got a client out of it that I would have never gotten elsewhere. That was a big deal because later I would sell them, watches and everything else. So right now, like I just got a client that I knew had enough money to buy a Ferrari and that liked wheels on it, that liked my style wheels on his car. So not only I got a client, but at the same time, that client then got my info. So if anything went wrong with any of these parts, the dealership had nothing to do with it. And they didn't have to warranty the work or anything. I did. And since I had a good reputation, it almost worked really well altogether. It was a complex thing, but because I was doing it with only one dealership, it was managed really closely by myself. And over time, like that evolved to more dealerships, and it actually became a business. And I hired that same guy that was washing cars for me. His name was Sam, and so Sam ended up becoming like the general manager of that kind of operation, where he went from washing cars, like on the evenings, onto actually managing this business for me. And he did so for a few years before he ended up, moving on to other things.
Right. Holy cow. So let me just ask you too, were you end up having, it sounds like you had a good bit of money and you had saved a bunch of money. Were you having to lay out a bunch of money to outfit these cars with all these rims?
No, not really, because what I did is I did like pretty much almost like an accounts, payable.
Yeah, net 60 payable. Or something.
Yep, exactly. So what I ended up doing is first I would get these wheels with some of these newer wheel dealers that wanted their product out there. So I was getting them dirt cheap as promotional products. Secondly, I was also going out there and specifically seeking new designs that people hadn't seen out there, so that it was fresh and hot for them. And then I was also, when I was putting these cars, I was only doing 4 to 5 cars at the same time to begin with. And if things weren't selling, I would move in them to other cars. So there wasn't really a need to I only had an initial investment, I think if I remember, it was like 15 grand in wheels and cars. And then every wheel set that sold almost made me 200% profit margin. So they would almost pay.
And you weren't even having to do any of the selling.
No, at all. I didn't have to do any selling at all. I would just give the salesman guy back $500 cash if he actually convinced the client to get it, he actually sold it that way.
I don't want to get stuck on this too much because you have so many fascinating things and stories to offer, but I think this is so cool. What inspired you to go approach a dealer and be like, hey, I want to put rims on your used cars?
Well, because I saw an opportunity where I was young, I had a Lamborghini, and nobody else young was doing anything with their Lambos, and they weren't actually being part of the events or anything else. And as I went to these car events, I saw that dealers, all they did was try to sell more cars, right? That's their goal. Like they just see numbers. They don't see branding or anything else. And for me, the idea was this particular dealer had a lot of good used inventory. And they were doing a really good job trying to reach out, which meant they were hungry for younger clients.
Got it. And when you say that, were they coming to like the car shows and?
No, they were throwing events that I was always invited to. And they were trying to attract. They were hiring like models and things like. They were trying to attract that whole like new money. I know you have money, so come and buy a car. And so I felt that's how that dealer was going to differentiate their business from someone else.
How old were you at this point?
Very young, man. I was in my low 20s. I was like 23.
And you just went to the dealership one day and said, hey, I got this idea?
No, I went to the general manager and I was like, I'm a client here because you service my Lamborghini. And, we should talk about how we can increase your sales. And he was paying attention. And
that one meeting led to it being done and good to go? Yeah.
It was a one thing. And, a lot of kids today ask me, they're like, how do you do that? Because we want to do the same thing. I came from a lateral place. I think that's why it helped. I brought a Lamborghini in and I was a client of that dealership. So the Lamborghini gave me the buy-in that, I was serious and I was in business. I wasn't some kid with an idea, I had money to back it up and I was ready to do it.
You had the credibility. Yeah.
That's what
everything about it. Yeah. I agree.
That's all there was.
I agree. That was probably a huge part of it. And they probably knew your car and knew you as you walked in and yeah, I get it. Okay. So, all right, man, that's so cool. And so you started with four sets of rims and that ended up leading to 50, 100, 200, 300 clients. Like how long did that business go for? Or how long, and it's still running now, but that was the start of VIPmotoring.net, right?
I would say, right, VIPmotoring.net, I would say by 2006 was at its peak. Like 2006 was really the peak year when it was doing like a lot of business. And at that point, we weren't even doing a membership base. We were taking on any orders for watches, cars. We really boomed out once we started selling watches. I think the watch thing was really what took us to the next edge because we were making like 10, 15 grand over like, let's say a month of holding someone's car and customizing it. And we were making like 2 to 3 grand per watch and moving like 4 or 5 watches a day.
So how do you go from selling rims to watches? Like, I know the clientele, it's what they want, but how does that process work? Do you just call and say, hey, you know, you got these rims, but I just got these watches, fell off the back of a truck, and I got a great deal. Like, how does that go down? You know?
Remember what I told you earlier? I said I had a client list, which was what I was really building through this process. You know, I was buying clients, right? So everybody that's into the cars, like into the luxury cars, usually is into watches. I'd say probably like 8 out of 10 people that own exotic cars own nice watches, or have owned nice watches, or would own nice watches should the right deal come about. I think one of the main things that I always said worked well for my business was having the visual of the wheels on the cars when people saw them, right? That's why they didn't double think it, they would just buy them. I did the same thing with the watches. I bought a lot of inventory cheap, and I pretty much made sure that every time we visited a client, we showed them that inventory.
So how do you go from selling, you know, rims to your clients? I mean, did you literally, to the watches, did you literally just map out a list of all your clients and say, okay, I want to start scheduling breakfast, lunches, drinks, I want to have these events, or I want to go visit them in their offices? Like, how did that even go about? How did that go about?
So we really switched once that dealership concept kind of picked up. We wanted to make more money than just going and selling rims to people.
Sure.
So we started selling full design proposals to some of the same clients, where we took their existing, like we would take their existing cars and add body kits, suspension, engine customization, and we did it all in-house. So we would bring their cars over for a month while they were on a trip. We would customize them, then they'd be ready by the time they came back. When we did that, we had what we call design consultations, which we called people and made appointments to go see them and talk to them to what we can do to their cars. And we also told them more about our business and included the watch aspect. And at which point, all we did was show them the different watches.
Got it.
And we ended up making a decent amount of money off of people actually saying, yeah, I'll take this or I'll take that with it.
Got it. Okay, so it makes total sense now. And you literally got that to move 3 or 4 watches a day?
And we got to a point where the watch business became more dominant than the car business, because people always bought and sold watches, you know, more frequently than they bought and sold their cars.
Right. Man, that's awesome. So you go from cars to watches, and at this point now the watches are overtaking the revenue coming in from the cars. And I would imagine the amount of work involved with, especially from a management standpoint, overseeing everything from selling a watch to customizing a car, was probably 1/20th of the work, and you're making more money. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so where does the business go? And how far into it are you at this point? Is this a couple years, 3 years, 4 years?
No, this is about a 4-year process where the business itself had established itself, what it was going to be. And this was about the time when we decided that it was too much work for money. Like it was getting to the point where we actually had to hire 7 or 8 people to work there.
And what do you mean, like mechanics or people to do customization?
No, not at all. We had like people who were actually online people, because we sold a lot of these watches online, you know, through all the sites. We had people that not only understood lifestyle and luxury lifestyle, but also were able to deliver these watches online, present them, take pictures. So we had in-house photographers, we had in-house models, we had actually like the actual individuals doing the IT, the SEO, you know, all that stuff. And it became like a major production, and it almost became too much work. And I don't like working. I know that sounds wrong, but
no, it's totally fine. There's a lot more fun things to do in life often.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought to myself, I said, either I got to sell this business, or I got to find a way to residualize it where I just hang out rather than actually work for it all the time. And so with the job I had, you know, like I was doing well in corporate America. I liked my job. I didn't want to let it go yet, even though I was making more money here. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I was kind of like in this rut where I was always working at that point. And I was like,
you're still working at the bank at this point.
Yeah.
Got it.
And the beauty of it is, because I had a senior management job, I didn't have to do anything other than make sure my teams were trained.
Right.
So I had them trained, and I was running this part-time while I was doing the other thing.
I get it, man. That's incredible. How old are you at this point? 26?
I was, 26.
26, okay. And so how well was the, if you don't mind me asking, this was in 2006, and it hit its
I believe so.
peak around then, and I would assume that has a lot to do with the economy, and especially the real estate market.
100%. It was all about timing. It was all about timing.
Yeah, God, that's incredible. And I know you're in Florida, right? And we're in Florida at this time?
No. I was still in DC.
Oh, you were? Okay,
Yeah. I didn't move to Florida. I retired in Florida 2 years ago.
I retired in Florida. I love it.
Yeah.
We'll get to there in a minute. But I can only imagine how it might have been down in Florida because the real estate market was just exploding down there, and there's just so much opulence down there that.
No, I was in real estate in Virginia, and primarily in Virginia. I had a bunch of condos in Miami that were being rented, but my main investment was strictly in Northern Virginia, all of it.
Did you get out of if you don't mind me asking, did you get out of your condos before the bottom fell out?
I got out of everything end of 06, early 07.
So you didn't take a bath on any of that stuff?
I took a bath on a few, but not like murder. Just a few. You know, like on some of them, I could have made a lot more if I sold earlier.
Right.
I did end up losing a few. I'd say probably no more than like 80 grand altogether between a few condos left. But remember that I never invested in properties. I invested in lots. So the lifetime of all these lots was no more than like 12 to 16 months. I never actually owned a lot of properties until the later part. And so my main real estate backing came from lot selling. My second, aspect of residual income was coming from these condos and other places that I was renting. But at that time, like I was hoping the equity would keep going up. Some of them I got rid of. Most of them I ended up either breaking even or kind of calling it quits, and taking a little bit of a loss.
Yeah, I love land as an investment play just because there's not much of a liability.
Yep.
And it requires pretty much no management at all.
Exactly, which is what I pretty much did early on. So.
Yeah, we have some land down in Argentina and some property down there that, it's just easy. I don't even think about it. You compare that to owning a residential property or a commercial property, and you can pay people to manage it and do all that, but still, it's just it's a whole different machine, a whole different animal. So, all right, so you're 26 and you are crushing it on top of your world. At what point did you decide to go kind of full time? I mean, it sounds like you're still working corporate job. The business is like getting to the point where it's becoming a headache because it's too much. So what happens from there? Well,
something amazing happens. I get fired.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny. That is amazing. So what came from that?
Well, I get fired because nobody at work likes me driving Ferraris and stuff to work, and they start kind of like talking about I must be doing side things and this and that, and they get to a point where they're like, either show us your tax returns or you're fired. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm out. Like I threw my badge and I walked out.
Why? Because they didn't want you doing a side gig.
Well, no bank likes you doing side gigs.
But
so
was your department doing well, or the team you were overseeing?
Very well, like superbly well. Like I never did.
Funny, and this is such a backwards ass thing that I see so often. It's like, and I have friends here and there that work corporate, and they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I should do that while I still work here. I'm like, if you are performing, especially if you're a top performer for whatever you're being hired for, why would the company give a crap what you do outside?
Because you scared them. That's why.
I know,
because you scare the people you work with too. Like your boss is scared,
I get it, but it's just such a narrow-minded mentality. It's a scarcity mindset that people fear that you're going to do so good, you're going to leave. Well, you're going to leave anyway.
Right, but it's not even that. I think, when people don't understand something, they're naturally afraid of it. And I think
that's a good point.
Right? And especially when you're in a very regulated industry like a bank and you see this kid running over with like different Ferraris and Lamborghinis every other day, and you're kind of like, he's got a 30K Rolex on and my boss drives a Nissan Maxima, like there's something that like triggers like alarm bells for them, and they want all the info. And unfortunately, I was very cocky, I was very arrogant, and I really believed that my tenure there was going to land me whatever answer I wanted, to give security, whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like, either prove it or leave, and I left. And I decided that it wasn't in my best interest to stay. And money wasn't an issue at the time because I had my real estate money, I had my VIP motoring doing well, I had kind of at that point already thought of starting something like Secret Consulting. And, I was already putting the framework to that together. So I thought of it as an opportunity rather than a terrible thing,
It's too funny. Yeah, and I don't want to get into my story, but remind me later. I'll tell you some parallels even that are great that have to do with getting fired. So you leave, you get fired. This is this amazing thing that happens. Then what?
Well, then I start thinking about what I really want the rest of my life to look like. And because, I was branded to be a corporate guy. I had gone up very quickly without a degree. A lot of people looked up to me. I said, what do I want to really do? You know, do I want to get back in another bank, continue this? What's the next game? And I thought to myself, I said, why don't I start something kind of like a nonprofit where I help young people who want to do well in life, who don't have opportunity. And I'll start this thing called Secret Consulting, and I'll do some consulting with people for free, like young people and the parents and stuff, to help younger people kind of be successful and find a way for themselves. And I was like, I'll find a way to monetize it later on. But I had VIP. I wasn't worried about making money, so I was like, let's try to do something more meaningful. And so that what I really felt was, this was the part that I didn't want to tell anybody. I was betrayed, by like my own corporation ultimately. Sure. And I was like, I want no other person to go through that shit, to actually believe that they're going to get somewhere, and then just for someone to not like them and put a hold to it.
Pull the rug
and so
out
I said,
underneath them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I said, let me try this organization that would help people not fall into the same loop that I fell into. And I came up with Secret Consulting, and Secret Consulting was nothing more than me consulting with kids for free. And over time, it just kind of evolved into a blog, which later we decided to change Secret Consulting into Secret Entourage and separate the two. One was a business and one was a free blog. So ultimately, that's how the beginning of Secret Entourage started.
Got it. Okay. And so where are you now? This is what year? So you left in 2006 or 2007?
Yeah, no, I left it was actually early 2007. Okay. And then that's roughly the end of 2007 is when the blog Secret Entourage actually came to life. I'm sorry?
How did you, with Secret Consulting, how did you kind of start that business? Did you just start going to high schools or colleges and knocking on doors, or?
I had a pretty large following already, in the banking world, etc. So I just started doing a lot of coaching for people who were already in corporate America. People that just still reached out to me. They're like, oh, what happened to you? I'd love to talk to you, whatever. And, I kind of took that to heart. And then other places was just every time I would run into someone, I just created these business cards. And every time I would run into someone who was like, what do you do for a living, sir? What a great card. What is this? I would just give them a card instead. I was like, look, man, I give free coaching sessions. If you want help, I'd be glad to help you out.
And this is truly from the bottom of your heart, just because money was good at that point and you just wanted to help people.
Yeah, I felt that, if it wasn't for great mentors in my life through my banking career, I wouldn't have become who I've become, and I wouldn't have seen the things I've seen. And I've always had great parenting, and I've had the most wonderful mother in the world, and I had some amazing people around me. And I would really, really say that if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I am. And I felt that a lot of kids these days don't have that support at home. And I said, if it takes just 10 minutes of talking to someone to get them motivated enough to go out there and do something, or tell them how to do something a little bit better, then I was like, there's just going to be a better place like tomorrow, and I'm going to feel better about myself. So I enjoyed coaching people. It wasn't something that was forced, and I was good at it. And I wanted to do something different rather than just focus on, firing people for a living and doing things like that. And so I was like, let me come up with something better. And that's when Secret was really born.
Oh, that's cool. And so you do that for roughly a year. You're running the car and watch gig, and Secret Entourage launches at the end of 2007. Is that right?
It launches as Secret Consulting as a blog. So what happened is when I was kind of reaching out to people, I got tired of repeating myself because I was taking a lot of my time coaching people. So I figured every time I coach someone, why don't I put it online and actually write an article about it so others can learn from it, and I can refer everyone back to the same site. I had a client when I was in banking that was like a wealth client, someone's extremely wealthy, who had a son who was 16 years old, and the son really was kind of lost, but he was really talented in computers. So I asked him if it'd be okay if I talked to his son about coming on a project with me, which would be a blog that would, I didn't know anything about IT stuff. So I'm like technologically retarded. I don't even know how to set up a telephone, once you get these new smartphones. So I don't know any of this stuff. And I'm like the guy that didn't find out that Skype existed until 5 years ago,
Right.
So I hired this kid and gave him some equity in this company and told him he wouldn't make a lot of money. But all he had to do was update it a few times. And so he agreed to it. We started, and Secret Consulting started building somewhat of a following online. But it wasn't that large. People just liked the content. The delivery was really bad. And it wasn't attracting new people. It was attracting the same people who would share it with one more person each week. So the hits were slowly growing, but it wasn't really something that was, monetizable or anything else. It wasn't until I really realized that one of my really good friends was a great graphic designer that secret consulting, like the blog, kind of died, and instead became Secret Entourage. We sat down one time before New Year's. I think it was before New Year's of 2008. And we decided, we said, we have a following, but how can we grow it? Like, how can we make now this idea into a full, platform? And so we kind of decided that it had to be more fun, because young people like fun stuff. Nobody likes boring Forbes like stuff. And I didn't want to compete with Forbes. I didn't want to compete with Inc. or any of these magazines about entrepreneurship. So I said, how do I, let's create a success or money blog, something that was hotter and with more cars, because that's what we do. That's what we're about. We're about cars, lifestyle, and everything else. And so we said, well, we love the show Entourage. Like, we thought that was a great show, and we're like, that means life.
I was wondering if there was any connection there.
Right? Okay. So that's where, let me tell you how the name came up. So we knew the secret. We had Secret Consulting because the idea of Secret Consulting was we were going to give people advice, but never tell them who we were. So nobody knew who I was. The idea was I didn't want to take credit. I just wanted to anonymously help people. So I was like, it'll be the secret, except that since it's not just about me, I wanted to make it about my friends and stuff. I was like, well, the show Entourage kind of stands for, entourage like your friends, but also like Entourage, the show was a lot of fun and stuff. So I was like, why don't we use the word Secret Entourage instead of Secret Consulting? And then what was funny is we actually realized that, the secret for the secret to success, or the secret, the anonymous aspect of it, and the entourage for like your friends, and then the idea of, lifestyle. But what really happened is then I was coloring in the kind of the logo. I was coloring it in just for fun on a piece of paper because I scribble. And I realized that I colored in ENT and then our and then age, which means enter our age. Which, the way we spell it now is Secret Entourage. But if you actually read the entourage, it's enter our age with the our with the 3 dots on top, standing for our generation, and our age is in our younger kind of demographic. And so that's kind of how Secret Entourage was born. And then we kind of decided that we would reveal a new person that's in my circle of friends each month, through a success story, and we would black them out, and then we would reveal them. So they're blacked out on the homepage, but when you go through the article, you discover who that secret person is.
That's why you do that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So our trademark is really blacking out people and then revealing them into the story. And so collectively, they formed this giant community called Secret Entourage, but single-handedly, no one person can teach the world everything. But together, we definitely all do something specifically really well. And whatever that thing is, I think people out there should hear the true stories behind it, rather than just hear about programs that they can buy for another $100 or $200 or whatever, and rather they can get real good advice from people who have proven experience doing it. And we bring them that each month, and now we're doing it bi-weekly because it's been better and it's picked up, so we have more and more stories.
Yeah, it's really a really cool site. And I remember when I found that kid on there, what's his name again? Alan?
Mm-hmm. Alan Wong.
Alan Wong, yeah. I was just like, what is this site? And started cruising around, and it's interesting. You guys kind of play, it goes in line right with your passions already, too. There's a lot of, I don't want to say focus, but there's a lot of emphasis on the cars and kind of the lifestyle bit of it. From that perspective.
Yeah, we use lifestyle as imagery and as beautiful things to just motivate people, but the content on the site is very far from lifestyle. It's more educational. Even when we show cars, we show various ways to get to the cars rather than just show them pictures. But we illustrate those articles with beautiful imagery.
Yeah, and you do a really good job of it. All the articles, it's just all the blog posts or the stories on the success stories are all just littered with great imagery. So awesome. So okay, so you start this and you've got it going now for a couple of years. You switch it to Secret Entourage. Once you did that, did it just explode, or did it slowly take off? Or
it slowly took off. The main thing that made us explode at Secret and brought light to what Secret is to people, that kind of got us like noticed by people. We thought these stories would do it at first, and they weren't. The stories were small, they were getting bigger, but they weren't really getting us out there.
And these, when you say these stories, you mean like the actual like success stories? Or,
yeah, exactly. Okay. We thought that they would spread within people's like reach, and then through that reach, they would keep going. They never really did, not at the beginning anyways. The one thing that changed everything was when me and that 16-year-old kid, his name is also Alan, at the time, he wasn't 16 anymore, he was like 18. And he comes up with this idea, and he's like, look, you know how they have those motivational quotes online? You know, you've seen them, like they're really like gay looking, like it's like two people holding hands. You know?
Yeah, I get it.
There's like two people holding hands, and it's like, you know, courage, and there's the definition of courage or something stupid.
Yeah.
So we thought, I said, well, there's a lot of great motivational quotes, but what would be hotter is if we reached out to like all these epic photographers that have worked with us and asked them to submit their like top 10 pictures and then recreate our own motivational quotes, but with really hot imagery that people would want to rep. They would want to put as their wallpapers, they would want to put on their screens. And so we created these motivational quotes and we started spreading them out there. And they immediately got like hundreds of shares, if not thousands of shares.
When was this?
This was back in like 2000, this was 2010 almost now.
Okay.
Where we put these pictures out there and people started eating them alive, and they started, you know, just sharing them and liking them, and they started really using them as wallpapers, telling people about them. And at that point, you know, our brand started really becoming what it was meant to become, and people started noticing us and saying, I've heard or I've seen your pictures out there, and said, et cetera, and actually started coming back on the site. That was the real change in our marketing strategy that helped us really reach more people.
Just the image quotes. It's funny. And that literally, did you see a transition like in 1 month or 2 months of launching that to your traffic doubling, tripling, quadrupling, or?
No, we were roughly getting like at that time, like 500 hits a day, you know, and we immediately went to like 2,200 to 2,500 a day. Uniques, that is.
God. Yeah, that's...
Which was great, you know, like it was huge because we saw that, and that kept growing. It didn't go from 500 to 2,500, you know, it grew gradually, but I'd say within like 120 days we were there.
Did you just put like a little logo in the bottom right hand corner or something?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. We just made sure like all of the fonts and the pictures kind of like, it was like, they were all different. So we didn't use a common font on all the pictures. We used different color fonts with different pictures and made sure it didn't obstruct the pictures. We carefully picked the pics that people were sharing at that time to begin with and just transponded quotes. And at first we tested it. It worked really well. Then we tested different elements like having guys in suits instead of just cars, you know, like different, like girls in cars, and saw what shared the best. And now we got it down to a science where we know what people share and what quotes we get done, and we get famous photographers that actually want us to use their pictures. So we no longer need to advertise who wants us to use their pictures. Everyone's kind of cool with it.
It's so cool, man. That's so cool. So that one little thing shifted your business pretty majorly.
From a exposure standpoint.
Yeah. But also which led to traffic, I assume, which... do you monetize the Secret Entourage at all with ads or?
So yes and no. We have we're very blessed to have a good amount of sponsor support. So our sponsors do, you know, support the site very well, and that's been something that's been going on from the beginning. Now we do sell ebooks. We're not in the ebook business, so let me just clarify. We're not an ebook based business. We sell ebooks, which we believe through the years we've written a series of ebooks, everything from the foundation of leadership all the way down to how to, you know, master the principles of finance, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle. We've put this collection of books as the main go-to Secret Entourage product, and we sell that product through the site. But to be clear, the site itself generates revenue that goes back into the site to grow its exposure. None of the revenue gets split between any of the ownership team or any of the people, but it pays for things like photography, videography, you know, having more people like actually traveling to meet some of these success stories that we're now having to find further away and actually bringing back on the team, etc. So ultimately, whatever revenue the site generates doesn't pay anybody that participates in the site itself.
So it just goes back into the company.
Yeah, and it's not meant to be that way for the next 10 years.
And that's the plan. Okay. What's the big, that was my next thing. You just said the next 10 years. So apparently you have a bigger vision.
Oh yeah. The vision for Secret is to become that mentor for people that don't have access to mentorship. Like my goal was to create a site that would be a resource for all these kids that are home whose parents are crushing their dreams and telling them to go get a 9-to-5 and go to school and do this. And if they don't have the opportunity to go to school, or they don't have the opportunity to have that support at home that they can be greater than what their parents, you know, want them to be, then they have a site they can go to, they have a community they can join, and they can do all that without paying a dime. So I don't want a child or a person out there to tell me that they don't have money and that's the reason they can't succeed. And that's bullshit. And I want them to go out there and I want them to just join up for free. And they don't have to buy any of the books. If they really want to, learn more, they can buy books. But I mean, a $9 book is different than a $40,000, tuition payment, right?
God, yeah.
I mean, if
which one's going to be more impactful at the end of the day?
Right, exactly. So if they want to read books, they can. But 90% of the information that's out there outside of the books is free and it's on the site. And they get motivated and they should go do something. And they have the tools now on the site to also help them network with other entrepreneurs that are like-minded. And also get that mentorship from proven mentors as well that kind of interact with the community from time to time.
That's awesome. So do you actually have like a forum, or is it mainly just in content? You do?
Yeah. So there's 3 tiers to our site. There's the blog that provides information that's updated 4 times a week. There is the community where people can join and participate with one another. And it is free again. Everything here is free. And then we have the only membership part of our site that is launching in 40 days, which is going to be the Academy, which is going to be less than $30 a month and give people access to some incredible videos of some never-before-heard entrepreneurs who are all either extremely well-established or have done some amazing things that no one's heard about.
Got it. I love it. So, and I think that's really smart for you to do that, because there is a level of people that, a percentage of people that really want that kind of access and are willing to pay for it. And
But we wanted to make sure that the site itself stays free, because my goal with the site was to impact that younger generation. And I never want to go to a model where we are, and my teams, now that we are bigger, insists that sometimes we go to these models where we monetize, because with the hit level, we can really monetize on it. But I really don't want, like, my brand vision for the long term of what Secret Entourage is has no relevance to money. And therefore, even though there's some elements that could be a premium element, the main site and the community need to remain free for as long as the site exists.
Got it. I love it. So with that said, do you feel like you're achieving that goal of impacting kids and inspiring kids and helping them out? Or
I think that the 2-3 emails I receive a day, saying like thanks, or thanks for opening my eyes to something new, thanks for teaching me something. I think that matters, and I think that does give me that fulfillment that we're heading in the right direction. I see it more when I still do coaching sessions with kids for free. To this day, I still do it when I usually tend to devote 60% of my coaching sessions to free, 40% to more like paid consulting sessions for brand building and business.
Right.
But the 60% that's free is really helping younger entrepreneurs or younger individuals who want to be successful, who don't know what to do, through like 30 minutes or an hour worth of coaching. And through those sessions, I do see a lot more impact, where I do hear, it's actually funny because a lot of those guys, even though they're there from Secret Consulting, they all are following Secret Entourage and they all know about Secret Entourage. So they're like, oh, I love the site. It motivates me every day. And then that was great. And then the main kicker for me was when I heard someone else who's actually wealthier than me say, I get motivated every day when I wake up and I, see your motivational quotes. And I'm like, it's great, because it's just showing that motivation is universal, regardless that it's a millionaire, a billionaire, or a normal kid sitting in his office trying to figure out how to make the next big, computer happen. That no matter what, motivation is universal. It's just a question of finding for yourself what motivates you.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I know you'll end up hitting, whatever measure in your mind deems it to be, the end goal of being successful and impacting people. There's no doubt in my mind. And if you're getting 2 to 3 responses a day, I can only imagine where you'll be as it grows. Are you seeing growth on that site, hits year over year wise?
So far, year after year, we've slowed down since last year, where we haven't gone down. We haven't grown as much as we did the previous 2 years. We believe that this academy we're going to launch is going to take us to that next level even further. I think that that's where we have purposely not got into the video model, because we didn't know how to innovate the video model. I think this academy will be that. Everything we touch.
What do you mean by that, the video model?
Well, what I mean is everything we do at Secret has to be unique or better than what someone else is doing out there. So we didn't do motivational quotes until we were sure that we could do them better and stronger than anyone else doing them out there. We didn't get into some elements of lifestyle until we're sure we could do them better. Like, the whole point is to always take something and improve on it, never to release the same thing just to have something out there. for the longest time, we didn't do anything with video. Like a lot of people ask us, they're like, how come you don't have a lot of videos on your YouTube channel? You know, we have like 40 videos and they're not like that many for being around for that long, you know? And we purposely said because our video interviews would be no different than what you would find on another video channel. And that's not what we want. And so with this academy, we've changed the format up a little bit. We've made it more like a movie, ultimately, that every interview is not like a side-by-side interview, but is only the person being interviewed speaking directly to an audience, almost like a course. And the person interviewing doesn't even exist. So what we've done with the video concept is we are putting the viewer in the seat of the interviewer. And ultimately, even though they're not guiding the interview, we are specifically asking questions that are getting down to the nitty-gritty of how people have not just made money, but have succeeded. And what the one thing they do really well is that they're teaching their audience today. And then we're giving people the opportunity to interact with that video and continuously follow that interaction through the forum and reconnect with that entrepreneur as well.
Oh, that's great. So the entrepreneur will be there participating in the conversation after it's done.
And doing Google Hangouts and also kind of participating with people, you know, further as we grow into more live events and things of the sort.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see how that kind of develops. What, just going back, I mean, you obviously have always had a lot of drive, a lot of ambition, and I know that's a big part of it, but what do you think is the number one, you know, key or reason that you're so successful?
I don't give up. I think that's the biggest thing. And I think a lot of people tell me, where did you learn not to give up? Because it's a hard thing to have, you know, to give up. And I'll tell you this, and I think this story pretty much sums it up, is my mom wanted to come to the United States. You know, we were forced into France because of the revolution. We didn't have much to do. And we had to start everything from scratch every time.
How old were you when you moved from Iran to France?
I was very, very young. I was like a year or 2 years old.
Okay, so you don't remember Iran? Or
at all. Like, I'm more like French culture than anything else. Yeah. So, but when we grew up in France, my mom was very high up in the, worked for the government, made a lot of money in Iran, and then suddenly was chased into France and made nothing. You know, had no savings, nothing. And
was she working for the opposition government when there was a revolution? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she was working directly for the Shah of Iran, and you know there was all these like problems when they overthrew the Shah with the coup and everything.
Yeah, so she had to get the hell out right away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, she was, you know, it was either that or she was going to die. They were going to execute her. So
yeah, I get it.
No choice. She was on trial, and she was like about to. She just left, took up, and left. But
she was on trial.
Yeah, so it was like really bad because they wanted everybody that had any relevance to the government to just be pretty much gone. So they found bogus reasons. Yeah, exactly.
So did she have to sneak out through the borders in the middle of the night?
Yep.
Was it like a friendly deal? Like somebody's like, okay, she's coming, let her go through, or it was like, run?
Yeah, paid deals, run, everything else, and then eventually made it to Turkey, and from Turkey made it to France. You know, and
oh my God, what a gnarly story.
Yeah, no, it's a really good story, but I think the main thing here is that, you know, when she was in France, she wanted to come to the States, and they wouldn't let her because they weren't letting anybody from Iran come to the States. And the main thing is she went to the embassy like every month, which was an hour away from the house, like with metro, you know, because we didn't have a car, and she would walk for 30 minutes with a child in the cold and the heat, no matter what. She would get there only to be rejected, and she did that for 11 years. Monthly. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication and drive to do something for 11 years, only to have the same outcome, you know? But the only thing you have to hang on to is that belief that you're going to eventually get it, right?
Right.
And I think that's why I write a lot of that in my book, Third Circle Theory. I write a lot about how we're the byproduct of our observations more than our environment, and that what we observe as a young child is ultimately the baseline we have as we grow is based on that. But for her to do that, I think I learned very young that you don't give up if you really do something. Yeah. And I stuck to it. And I said that sacrifice of her doing that, and that sacrifice of her then leaving all that behind, and she built a really nice empire of like Kinko's-like businesses when she was in France. And she left it behind overnight again just to come to the States when they finally approved her visa. And again, she lost everything again to start from scratch. That sacrifice has to be worth more than just money. Because if I became a doctor or lawyer and made money, then why didn't I just stay under her umbrella and just have her make money for us? You know, because it was fine.
I get it, yeah.
So to me, that impact had to mean more personally. My belief is that I'm here to cause more than just make money. And so I truly believe that with Secret, we're doing that. We're changing people's lives one person at a time. and we're helping people realize how to actually accept their full potential and grow from it. And that's why I see all these things aligning in my life that are now allowing me to do that, you know, and I do that every day.
Dude, I love it. I have a good friend, Carrie Green, who runs a group called the Female Entrepreneur Association, and very similar kind of parallels in your guys' missions and whatnot. And she's been doing these 30-day challenges that have been pretty impactful for her audience. And if you'll remind me later, I'll share that with you. I think it would be a really good transition. It basically just helps people kind of identify some huge things they want to accomplish, and then in that 30 days work towards that and get it done. And just doing all kinds of little cool things like that. And it's cool to know people like you and her who are just doing pretty awesome things to kind of leave a legacy, if you will.
Which is ultimately why I do what I do. That's why I said Secret Entourage is very dear to my heart. You know, for me, it's more a long-term legacy-driven project than it is in any way anything that has to do with money. I mean, a business, no good business, every good business has a good revenue model, no matter what. And I think, you know, we have one, but just because we make money doesn't mean we have to use the money and go and buy more expensive shit. Instead, we can actually spend the money in good ways and try to impact more people's lives instead of focusing on ourselves. So.
Well, and let's be real. You have that luxury because of the other business that you have that's pretty much your money pillow business, just kind of running on autopilot. And yeah,
without it, I wouldn't be able to do what I do today. So, you know, it's definitely, it's a fact. And that's what we try to teach people, that even though a lot of people say, well, it's not my passion, it's not my belief. Well, sometimes you can put your passion on hold, make money so you can support doing the things that are important that you love, because money is an important part of society, and that we like it or not, it is what runs this country and runs every other country in the world. And we're going to have to learn to either master it early on and then move past it, or constantly chase it and never really follow the things that we believe in.
That you're passionate about. Yeah. It's, you know, that's always been the thing for me, is that making great money is not about making great money and having toys and all these things. And while those are nice and you can do that, and that's totally fine, and I have no problem with that, for me, it's always just been more about the freedom that comes with it to give you the ability to pursue whatever passion you want. If that's, you know, raising your children, if that's building a business that you've always really wanted to do, but you just don't know if it's going to work out, and you just don't have the ability to do it, you know, without other means. It's, you know, whatever it may be. It just, for me, it's always represented freedom, and ultimately the freedom to do kind of what you want when you want, and you've got that, which I think is awesome, and that's why we're here today. So very cool, dude. Well, we've gone so long. Thank you so much for being generous with your time. Just your story, like, I really didn't know it, and then just you start to talk, and I just want to know, like, all the little details, and it's just fascinating, and especially the last bit about your mom. What a crazy, crazy story, and I'm sure there's all these details that you probably could expand upon an hour just on that.
Absolutely. We'd be here all night, man.
Yeah. Oh, God. Well, we'll have to hang out sometime. I don't want to hear all that stuff, because that's pretty freaking amazing. But I guess just two things for me real quick before we depart. Number one, is there a book that you'd recommend that's had a major impact on you from a business or kind of pursuing your dreams outside of your book, The Third Circle Theory? Is there one?
Believe it or not, I've never actually read a book.
Really?
Yeah, I've never actually liked reading. I was never a reading guy. I've never actually finished a book from start to finish. I would say that after I've kind of written my own book, I was exposed to a few books because we do reviews, you know, of some of the best books out there on Secret. Yeah. I'd say two good books that have really made a difference after I've read them, that I've kind of glanced through them, but I've really liked the content or its message. I would say the first one is The Gamification Revolution.
The Gamification Revolution.
Yeah, which is I want to say it has an ulterior message outside of what it may seem, but it's really how to engage people in what you're doing, and it has a very, very strong message around I guess humanity and how it is all about people. And the other book that actually worked, I thought had a really good message, was Start With Why. I'm not a big Simon Sinek fan at all for various reasons. I've actually had one opportunity to meet him, and it didn't work out, and I don't necessarily like him as an individual, but his book, nonetheless, regardless of what I think about him, it was a very strong book about leadership that I think that if more people read, They would have a better idea, especially if they're in positions where they lead people. I think there's too many crappy leaders out there, and I think books like that matter, and people need to start reading them.
Who was the author on that one?
Simon Sinek, SIMONSINEK.
And he's one of your favorite people. Okay.
No, unfavorite people.
I'm kidding. All right, and if you're listening to this on the over iTunes or on the podcast, I'll put links to this stuff on the website over at themoneypillow.com. Okay, and then so that was my first question. Then number two, and I guess this is just, we'll kind of conclude with this, but is there any advice or, I mean, you've obviously been tremendously successful. You hustled your way. And, it's funny, you kind of used the corporate world originally as your money pillow to kind of venture into starting your side stuff, and you went about it in a smart way, and we've seen that from time to time. And I love it. But is there any advice, I guess, you'd give to people who, are currently working in a corporate job or have an idea or have a passion that they really want to pursue? I guess, what advice would you say to somebody who's in that position?
I would say to anybody, I mean, regardless of that they're entrepreneurs or not, I think the best advice that I've ever received from one of my mentors that I hold very dear to my heart is, no matter that you're following your passion, working a job, or doing something that you don't necessarily love every day. I mean, a lot of people are in that position. Nothing keeps you from being great at what you do. Doesn't matter what it is you do. Doesn't matter how it is. But if you want things to move forward in life in general, just be great at whatever you touch. It doesn't have to be your passion. Working at McDonald's doesn't have to be the last job you'll ever hold or your destiny, but nothing keeps you from being great for the 8 hours you're there at work that day. And why I said this, because when you're great at what you do, you impact people's lives every day. The people that you serve, people that you touch, people that interact with you. And when you're mediocre at what you do, you ruin people's lives every day without even being aware of it. And if I had to choose how I live my life, regardless that I do reach that pinnacle that I call my own legacy or whatever it is that I want to do, I think that people all aspire to be great, but sometimes forget that it's in their actions that they define themselves. And so I always tell people, like, you don't have to know what you're going to do. You don't have to know where you're going to end up, but you can definitely control what you do every day. So just be great at it, whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter. Just be the best you can be at what you do. And eventually things will get better.
Dude, I love it. There's a couple things that come to mind when you say that. Aside from personal experiences, I think it's Jim Rome. I forget, maybe it was Zig Ziglar. Basically, it was just if you want more out of life, give more value. And the more value you give, the more in return you'll get. And I know from a personal experience, when I was working jobs that I hated, one being telemarketing, I found the harder I worked and the better I was at being. I mean, my goal is to double the top guy. And when I did that, I found, it sucked picking up the phone 70 times an hour and dialing a number or hitting a button and talking to people. But the harder I worked at it and the better I was at it, the more rewarding it was. All of a sudden, it didn't suck. Time flew by. And, and then I was impacting and inspiring people around me. Like, the top 3 guys were like, how in the hell is he getting 20? And so their numbers all came up. And then I had a restaurant job where I was serving tables. And the manager was this military guy who, I'm a punk, I'm a rebel, and this guy is conformist and hated me and literally made my life at that restaurant hell. And I said, you know what? I'm going to work so freaking hard and go above and beyond that he can't say anything to me, because I just know if I'm the best I can be, there is nothing he can say to me. And I ended up working my ass off and literally went from being the person he picked on, the person he hated the most, to employee of the month within 2 months. And the same thing happened with the telemarketing job. It was right around the same time. It was just I ended up work went by a whole lot faster. All my coworkers, treated me better. I made better money. It was just this whole if you have something that sucks, you can still. I completely agree. You can be great at it, and you'll get a tremendous benefit out of it. And that ended up leading into a bunch of other things. So, dude, that's awesome advice. Awesome advice. So.
Thank you.
All right, man. Well, very cool, PJ. It's been super fun, and I really appreciate having you on. Obviously, people can find you. Or where do you want to tell people to go? It's Secret Entourage. I don't know why I keep calling it I want to say entrepreneur. I've been saying that so much.
No, secretentourage.com is definitely the place to go to see our latest project. People can definitely check out vipmotoring.net or secretconsulting.com. And if they want to reach me, I mean, they can go to pejmanghadimi.com. I have my own website where they can reach me via email or all my social links as well.
Okay, cool. I'll put all of this, if you're listening on a podcast, I'll put all this over at themoneypillow.com. And I'll also put PJ's phone number and other information there. So
Absolutely,
you can just call him and text him.
Absolutely.
Just playing with you. So, all right, brother. Well, again, I really, really appreciate it. And this has been a great interview. I'll have to figure out how to trim this thing down because we've gone for so long. So I just appreciate your time and you giving so much, man. It was phenomenal.
Thanks again, bud. I appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll see you.